Chapter 1. The Encounter. Captain Kayla Harks stared out of the observation window of her sleek Confederation starship, the Celestine, as it drifted silently through the stars. She had seen hundreds of star systems, planets, and moons in her years of service, each one filled with its own unique brand of beauty or peril. The vastness of space always had a certain awe to it, but for Kayla, it was a reminder of the harsh realities she had lived through: the wars, the politics, the endless string of enemies that never seemed to stop coming. As a veteran of countless battles, she had long ago learned to compartmentalize her emotions, to remain focused on the mission at hand. But today, something was different. There was a strange weight to the air, a tension in the very way the stars twinkled outside her window. Something in her gut told her that this mission was going to be unlike anything she had ever experienced. The Celestine was on its way to an uncharted planet at the edge of Confederation space, a planet whose existence had only recently been discovered. The intelligence reports on the planet were sparse at best: rumors of ancient ruins, strange energy readings, and an alien species that had been observed but never studied. The Confederation was sending a small delegation, led by Kayla, to investigate the planet's potential for peaceful contact. There were no immediate signs of hostility, no evidence of anything that might indicate danger, but Kayla's instincts, honed over years of conflict, were telling her otherwise. She had been in enough dangerous situations to know when things didn't feel right, when the universe had a way of lulling you into a false sense of security before pulling the rug out from under you. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime, and the voice of her communications officer, Lieutenant Mira Jensen, crackled over the comms. "Captain, we are approaching the planet. Energy readings are consistent with our initial scans. No sign of hostile activity, but something's different. There's an anomaly in the planet's atmosphere. You might want to take a look." Kayla didn't hesitate. She quickly turned on her heel and walked briskly to the bridge, where Mira was already analyzing the data on the large holographic display. The planet loomed ahead on the screen, a swirling mass of clouds and deep blue oceans, its surface dotted with vast continents. But there was something strange about it: a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer in the atmosphere that didn't belong. It was as if the planet itself was cloaked, hiding something beneath its surface. "Lieutenant, what are we looking at?" Kayla asked, her voice steady but laced with concern. She had seen many anomalies in her time, but this one felt different, more deliberate. "It's difficult to pinpoint, Captain," Mira replied, her brow furrowed as she adjusted the readings. "It's not a natural phenomenon. There's an electromagnetic disturbance surrounding the planet, and it's affecting our sensors. It could be some sort of energy shield or something else entirely. But the interference is unlike anything we've encountered before. It's sentient, almost." Kayla stared at the display, her instincts screaming at her to be cautious. "Do we have any idea what this is?" Mira hesitated, her fingers dancing across the controls. "Not yet. The energy readings are fluctuating, but we're still in the dark. The closer we get, the more intense the anomaly becomes. It's almost like it's aware of us, Captain." Kayla's mind raced. She had been in close encounters with unknown alien species before, but this felt different. The idea that a planet itself could sense them, could be aware of their presence, was unnerving. In all her years of military training, she had never come across anything quite like this. She glanced at Mira, who was still scanning the data, clearly as uneasy as Kayla was. "Can we break through the interference?" Kayla asked, her voice calm, but carrying a hint of urgency. "We can try," Mira replied, adjusting the frequency of the ship's communications array. "But the more we push, the stronger the anomaly reacts. If we're not careful, it could disrupt the entire system." Kayla nodded, steeling herself. "Do it. We'll need to see what's on the other side." Myra's fingers flew over the console, and the ship's sensors began to whine as they pushed past the interference. For a moment, everything was silent, the entire bridge holding its breath as they waited for the anomaly to reveal its secrets. Then, without warning, the planet's surface shifted. Something massive, something invisible, seemed to peel away, revealing what lay beneath. On the screen, Kayla's heart skipped a beat as the planet's surface unfolded like a flower blooming in reverse. Beneath the clouds, hidden for millennia, was a sprawling city, ancient, yet perfectly preserved. Towers of strange, organic architecture stretched up into the sky, their surfaces gleaming with an iridescent sheen that seemed to glow from within. The city was unlike anything Kayla had ever seen, a fusion of technology and organic growth that defied conventional design. There were no signs of life, no ships in orbit, no bustling traffic. It was as if the city had been abandoned, left to decay in the solitude of the galaxy's forgotten corners. But it was still there, still waiting. Is this? Kayla's voice trailed off as she stared at the city, her mind racing. It's ancient, Mira confirmed, her voice awestruck. This city, it predates any known civilization. The architecture, the energy readings, it's all so advanced, Captain. I don't know how to describe it, but this is beyond anything we've ever seen. Kayla's thoughts swirled as the implications of the discovery settled in. The Confederation had always been on the lookout for new technologies, new ways to strengthen their position in the galaxy, but this was something entirely different. This wasn't just a technological advancement, it was a relic, a mystery, something that could change the course of history. But there was something else, something unsettling about it. The city had been hidden for a reason, and Kayla couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't meant to find it. Prepare the team for landing, Kayla said, her voice firm. We're going down to the surface. Stay sharp, everyone. I have a feeling we're not the only ones who know this place exists. As the ship descended toward the planet's surface, Kayla's mind raced with possibilities. What had happened to the people who once lived there? Why had they left? And more importantly, who or what had hidden this place away for so long? Chapter 2. The Silence Beneath. The Celestine landed on the outskirts of the ancient city, its landing gear crunching softly as it settled into the dust of a long-forgotten world. The air outside the ship was thick with the scent of age, stale and musty, as if the planet itself had been sealed off from the rest of the galaxy for eons. Kayla's boots thudded against the metal floor of the ship as she and her team geared up for their descent. She was joined by Lieutenant Mira Jensen, a few tactical officers, and Dr. Cyrus Vallon, the ship's lead scientist and archaeologist. Kayla knew the stakes were high. This was not just a simple exploration mission, it was an expedition into the unknown, a step into a lost history that could reshape everything the Confederation thought it knew about the galaxy. Dr. Vallon had been practically vibrating with excitement, his eagerness almost palpable as he sorted through his equipment. Captain, this is unprecedented, he had said when they first made the discovery. This could be the key to unlocking entire civilizations' worth of lost knowledge. Kayla, however, was cautious. The last thing she wanted was to be caught off guard by an ancient, forgotten species or worse, by whatever had hidden this city in the first place. The airlock hissed as it opened, and Kayla stepped outside, her team following closely behind her. The surface of the planet was dry, cracked, and barren, the remnants of once great structures now reduced to skeletal remains. The city stood just beyond, a towering testament to a civilization lost to time. But as Kayla stepped forward, her eyes locked on something that made her freeze. The city was not as empty as it seemed. A figure stood in the distance, barely visible against the shimmering skyline, its silhouette towering above the ruins. The figure was humanoid in shape, but it seemed to shimmer and distort, as if it were made of light and shadow. The sight was enough to send a chill down Kayla's spine. There was something wrong about it, something unnatural. Mira stepped beside her, her voice barely a whisper. Captain, what is that? Kayla's heart pounded as she stared at the figure. It stood motionless, watching them. The distance between them and the figure felt impossibly vast, yet somehow, it seemed closer with every passing second. It was almost as if the figure was waiting for them, waiting for something. Before Kayla could respond, the figure spoke, its voice deep and resonant, carrying across the silent expanse of the city. Why aren't you afraid, human? The words hit Kayla like a physical blow. Her pulse raced as she stared at the figure, her mind scrambling for a response. What was this being? How did it know she was human? And why was it asking such a strange question? Without thinking, Kayla stepped forward, her voice calm but tinged with a growing unease. I've seen many things, but you are new to me. Why should I be afraid? The figure's form flickered, as if it were shifting between dimensions, its features impossible to focus on. For a moment, it seemed to disappear entirely, and then, just as suddenly, it reappeared, closer now, standing at the edge of a broken tower, its figure still shifting like the very fabric of reality around it was bending to its will. There was a silence, thick and oppressive, as Kayla's heart pounded in her chest. The figure did not move, its presence was just there, watching, waiting. Because, the figure's voice came again, this time softer, almost like a whisper on the wind. Fear is a gift, one that only the truly intelligent know how to use. You should fear what you do not understand, what lurks in the shadows of the unknown. The voice was calm, but there was an underlying edge to it, a warning that made Kayla's instincts flare. The figure seemed to understand everything she was thinking, everything she had yet to ask. Kayla's mind raced. It wasn't just the figure's voice that unnerved her, it was the deep knowledge embedded in its words. This being wasn't just watching them. It was aware of them, of their fears, of their ignorance. A chill ran down her spine, but despite the growing terror in her chest, she stood tall, refusing to show weakness. She had faced monsters before, fought through entire wars with enemies who wanted nothing more than to see her dead. This thing was different, yes, but she wasn't going to let fear control her. "Why aren't you afraid?" Kayla asked, her voice cutting through the silence, firm, as though to challenge the strange being that towered over the ruins. Her eyes narrowed, studying it. It did not move, did not react, but she could feel a strange tension building in the air around them, as if it were waiting for her to say something, to make some move. The figure, shifting and flickering between light and shadow, didn't respond immediately. Instead, it tilted its head slightly, as though considering her question, the words lingering in the air like a puzzle half-solved. When it finally spoke again, the voice was laced with an almost amused undertone. "Because, human," it began, "fear is a limitation for creatures like you. You are bound by it, always driven by the fear of the unknown, the fear of losing control. You exist in a constant state of self-preservation, clinging to what is familiar." The figure paused, and for a moment, the air felt colder, as though the very essence of the planet was reaching out and drawing the warmth from their bodies. "But you have not yet realized, have you? Fear is not your greatest enemy. It is ignorance that limits you. And you dash," it pointed at her, the gesture deliberate and sharp. "You are on the brink of understanding something so much larger than you've ever imagined." Kayla's breath caught in her throat as the realization hit her. This being, whatever it was, wasn't just warning her. It was trying to force her to confront something deeper, something that went beyond survival, beyond any rational understanding. And the more she stood there, locked in a silent standoff with this alien entity, the more she felt that the answers she had come to find on this mission were already slipping through her fingers, replaced by something far more dangerous. "What is it you want from me?" Kayla asked, her voice quieter this time, laced with the first signs of real fear. It wasn't the kind of fear that made her paralyzed, but the kind that made her question every assumption she had ever made. She had been trained to face fear, to use it, to manipulate it, but this was different. This was something far more alien, far more incomprehensible than anything she had ever faced. The figure didn't immediately answer. Instead, it seemed to vanish, leaving behind only the faintest shimmer in the air. Kayla blinked, her eyes darting to where it had been standing, but it was gone. For a split second, panic surged through her. Had it disappeared? Was it playing some kind of game with her? And then, just as the tension reached its peak, the figure reappeared, this time directly in front of her, its presence far closer than she expected, making her freeze in place. "I want nothing from you," the figure said, its voice now quieter, more personal, as if it were speaking directly into her mind. "I simply want you to see what you are truly capable of, to show you what lies beyond your fear." Kayla stood unmoving, her body tense, but she felt a strange calmness seep into her as the figure continued. She didn't know if it was its presence or the alien energy that surrounded them, but she wasn't afraid anymore. It had forced her into a corner, yes, but it had also challenged her, pushed her to confront her very self. "And what exactly am I capable of?" she asked, now staring at the figure with determination, her earlier unease now replaced with resolve. She wasn't going to be cowed by this alien, not without understanding its intentions first. The figure, once again, remained silent for a moment, as if contemplating the gravity of her words. Then, slowly, it spoke again, its voice rich with something akin to admiration. "You think you are here by mere accident, that your destiny is bound by your mission, by your purpose in the Confederation. But you are wrong. You are here because you have been chosen. Not because of your military prowess or your skills as a pilot, but because of something much deeper. You have the capacity to change, to see beyond the limitations of your kind, to understand what others cannot even begin to fathom. That is why you are not afraid. You are ready." For the first time in her life, Kayla felt the weight of her existence shift, felt the stirrings of something deeper than the surface-level conflicts she had fought her entire career. Something inside her, something primal, something ancient shifted as the figure's words took root. Before she could respond, Myra's voice crackled in her earpiece, breaking through the moment. "Captain, we've detected a massive energy spike from the city's core. Something is happening. The whole place is starting to wake up. We need to get back to the ship now." Kayla's heart raced as the reality of the situation hit her like a physical blow. The figure before her was not just speaking in riddles. It was trying to tell her something vital. And now, she didn't know if it was too late to back out. She wasn't sure how much time she had left to understand what was happening, to grasp the weight of the alien's words. The figure, as though sensing her growing urgency, tilted its head again, a subtle smile forming on its shifting, ethereal face. "Time is fleeting, human. Your understanding will come soon enough, but it will come at a cost. You will have to make a choice. Do not forget your fear is not the enemy. It is the key to your transformation." With that, it vanished into the shimmering light of the city's ancient ruins, leaving Kayla standing there, her thoughts swirling in a fog of uncertainty and possibility. She turned swiftly toward the waiting team, her heart hammering in her chest. "Move now," she ordered, her voice sharp, cutting through the fog of confusion. As they rushed back to the ship, the air crackling with tension, Kayla couldn't shake the figure's final words. She had been chosen, and whatever that meant, whatever awaited her, she knew the answers would come with a cost. As the team boarded the ship and the engines roared to life, Kayla took one last look at the ruins. The city was awakening, and so was she. But the truth she had just uncovered was only the beginning. As the Celestine ascended from the planet's surface, leaving the ruins of the ancient city behind, Kayla couldn't shake the weight of the encounter with the alien figure. The atmosphere aboard the ship was tense, and though her team remained focused on their tasks, Kayla could sense the uncertainty hanging in the air, like a shadow that loomed over them. She couldn't quite grasp the enormity of what had just happened, but something inside her, some primal, deep-seated part of her being was irrevocably changed. The figure's words echoed in her mind. She had been chosen. But for what? What was it about her that had made her the focus of this ancient, powerful being? The ship's systems hummed quietly as it broke through the atmosphere, entering the quiet, open expanse of space once again. Kayla, still in the command chair on the bridge, glanced out at the viewports, where the swirling clouds of the nebula that had shrouded the planet now seemed so distant, almost insignificant. The planet, its strange city, and the mysterious figure were already fading into the background, replaced by the cold emptiness of space. But she knew this wasn't the end. The truth about the city, about the figure, and about herself was waiting to be unlocked. And Kayla couldn't help but feel that whatever awaited her, it would be a truth that would shake her very understanding of the universe. "Captain," Myra's voice came from the comms, breaking her reverie. "We're receiving another message from the planet. It's encrypted, but the signal seems to be originating from the city's core. We're still analyzing it, but it's a direct transmission. We need to decode it quickly." Kayla's attention snapped back to her duties, her instincts kicking in. There was no doubt in her mind that this was connected to what had just happened on the surface. The planet wasn't done with them yet. She stood up from the chair and walked briskly to Myra's station, where the technician was furiously working to unlock the message. "Any idea what it says?" Kayla asked, her voice calm, but carrying the weight of her urgency. "Not yet, Captain," Myra replied, her fingers dancing over the console. "But it's clear that whatever is sending this message, it's aware of us. This isn't just a simple transmission. It's alive in a way. It's almost like it's trying to communicate, but the encryption is sophisticated. It's like it's resisting us." Kayla frowned, watching the encryption process unfold. "Can we bypass it?" Myra nodded, but there was doubt in her eyes. "We're trying, but there's something about the energy signature surrounding the transmission. It's almost like the planet's core is sending out waves of interference. Whatever's down there is not just a relic. It's something more. Something active. Keep working on it," Kayla ordered, her gaze hardening. "I want that message decoded. We need to know what we're dealing with." As Myra continued her efforts to break through the encryption, Kayla walked back to her seat, her mind racing. The figure, the planet, the city, it was all starting to piece together in a way that made her uncomfortable. The message, though still hidden behind layers of encryption, seemed like it was the next step in the puzzle. But the very idea that something on the planet was actively trying to resist their attempts to understand it made Kayla's skin crawl. What had they uncovered? And why did it feel like they were being watched, studied, manipulated from some unseen corner of the universe? Captain, Myra's voice cut through her thoughts again, this time with a note of success. I think I've got it. Kayla stood up immediately, moving toward the console. The encrypted message finally began to unravel, the holographic text on the screen flickering as it resolved into readable form. Words appeared in the air, glowing with an eerie, unnatural light. Human, the message began, you have breached the barrier. You have touched the heart of what was never meant to be touched. The ancients warned you that the knowledge of the exiles would bring only destruction. But now it is too late. You are part of something much bigger than your understanding can comprehend. You have been chosen as the harbinger of change. But change comes at a price. Know this, you are not alone in your search. There are others, and they will stop at nothing to reclaim what you have awakened. Kayla's blood ran cold as the message continued. Her mind raced to process the implications of the words. Harbinger of change. What did that mean? Who were the others? What was the planet trying to warn her about? Captain, Mira said, her voice shaking slightly. The last part of the message. It's a warning. It's talking about someone or something that's coming after us. Kayla leaned closer to the screen, her eyes scanning the final words that materialized before them. You are not the only one seeking the exile's secrets. The ancient ones left the truth buried, but others will follow. You cannot stop what has begun. The exile's legacy will rise again, and you will either join it or perish in its wake. The message ended abruptly, the transmission cutting off before Kayla could fully process its meaning. For a long moment, silence filled the bridge as the gravity of the warning settled in. Kayla stood motionless, the weight of the words hanging over her like a storm cloud, threatening to engulf everything in its path. She had always known that the galaxy was filled with danger, that there were forces at work beyond the understanding of even the most powerful beings in the universe. But this was different. The exile program, the ancient secrets, the powers hidden away for millennia, they were not something to be taken lightly. They were a force, a legacy of destruction and power that had been lying dormant for far too long. Captain, Myra's voice broke through the silence, and Kayla turned to face her. We've got company. Kayla's pulse quickened. What do you mean, company? We're picking up a fleet of ships approaching from the edge of the system, Mira replied, her fingers flying over the console as the readings flashed on the screen. They're not Confederation. They're not even from any known factions, but they're heading straight for us. Kayla's eyes narrowed as she absorbed the information. She had known this moment would come, the moment when everything she had uncovered would come to a head, but she hadn't expected it to happen so soon. Whoever these ships belonged to, they were here for the same reason she was, the exile's secrets. Get the fleet on alert, Kayla ordered, her voice firm. Prepare the Celestine for combat. We're not letting them take what we've found. As Mira quickly relayed the orders, Kayla's mind raced. The warning in the message, the cryptic statement about others following them, this was no longer just an exploration mission. This was a battle for the fate of the galaxy. The exile program, the ancient city, the figure, it was all part of a larger, more dangerous game. And now, Kayla had no choice but to play her part. The enemy ships were closing in fast, and Kayla knew that this was only the beginning. The exile's legacy had been awakened, and now, it was up to her and her crew to stop whoever or whatever was coming for them. The truth had been unlocked, but with it came a choice, to fight and protect what had been found, or to stand aside and let the galaxy be reshaped by forces beyond their control. Kayla's heart pounded in her chest as the stars outside the viewport began to shift, the incoming fleet drawing nearer. This was at the moment everything changed, and Kayla Harks, captain of the Celestine, would face whatever came next head-on, because there was no turning back now. Chapter 3. The Fight for the Unknown. The atmosphere aboard the Celestine shifted dramatically as the fleet of unknown ships appeared on the sensors, rapidly closing in. Kayla's pulse quickened as the numbers of ships grew. They weren't just approaching, they were coming in fast, coordinated, and with purpose. There was no mistaking it now. This wasn't a coincidence. Whoever these ships were, they had been expecting the Confederation's arrival. They had known about the ancient city, the exile's secrets, and they had been preparing for a confrontation. A confrontation that had arrived a lot sooner than Kayla had anticipated. Captain, Mira said, her voice sharp and urgent. We've identified the fleet. They're not Confederation forces. They don't match any known ships or factions, but the energy signatures coming from them, they're unlike anything I've seen. We're dealing with something far more advanced than we are. Kayla's mind raced. The warning in the transmission they'd intercepted earlier echoed in her mind. You are not the only one seeking the exile's secrets. The mystery was unraveling faster than she could comprehend, and it was clear now that the stakes were much higher than she had ever imagined. These ships weren't just here to explore, they were here to claim the power hidden on the planet. And judging by their speed and precision, they were prepared for a battle. Can we communicate with them? Kayla asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Mira quickly checked the communications channels, her fingers flying over the console. No response, Captain. They're not broadcasting any signals. It's almost as if they're blocking all attempts to contact them. Perfect, Kayla muttered under her breath. She didn't have time to waste on diplomacy. They had to get ready for what was coming. Prepare the weapons, she barked. Get our shields up and the engines at maximum. We don't know what we're up against yet, but we're not backing down. A low hum vibrated through the ship as the systems powered up, the shields flickering to life and the weapon systems coming online. Kayla walked briskly to the command console, her mind focusing on the tactics she had learned through countless battles. This wasn't her first time in a fight, but it was different. These ships, whatever they were, seemed to have the advantage. Still, she would fight until she had no choice but to surrender. There was too much at stake. Commander, status report on the fleet? Kayla called to Lieutenant Kira Mathis, her tactical officer. We have 6 ships closing in fast, Captain, Kira replied, her voice steady but tinged with concern. They've got a lock on us, and they're preparing to fire. Their weapons are similar to Confederation pulse cannons, but more powerful. We can't take too many hits like this. We won't, Kayla responded, her eyes narrowing. We need to outmaneuver them, get into a position where we can hit them before they can strike us. Get me full power to the engines, and prepare evasive maneuvers. As the ship's engines roared to life, the Celestine surged forward, its sleek frame cutting through the void of space with surprising agility despite its size. Kayla gripped the controls, her hands steady, her mind sharp. This was a race against time. She needed to anticipate their every move, stay one step ahead. The incoming fleet wasn't just here for a skirmish, they were here to take control of the ancient city. And Kayla wasn't going to let that happen without a fight. The first shots rang out, bright streaks of energy slashing through the blackness of space toward the Celestine. Kayla's instincts kicked in, and she maneuvered the ship with precision, the pulse blasts narrowly missing as she veered the ship into a hard roll. The ship shuddered slightly from the shockwave of the close call, but the shields held, glowing with energy as they absorbed the blasts. She gritted her teeth, her focus never wavering. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a fight for knowledge, for power, and for the future of the galaxy. Shields at 70%. Mira reported, her voice rising in urgency. We can't keep this up for long, Captain. Then we'll make it count, Kayla replied, her eyes scanning the tactical display. The enemy fleet was closing in, but she could see the weakness in their formation. They were trying to box her in, to force her into a position where they could overwhelm her. But Kayla wasn't going to make it easy for them. She had learned long ago that if you couldn't fight with numbers, you fought with strategy, and she was about to show them what a single ship could do. Lieutenant, lock on to their lead ship's engine systems, Kayla ordered. We're going to disable them, not destroy them. We need answers, not wreckage. Kira nodded, her fingers dancing over the tactical controls. Locked on. Ready when you are, Captain. Kayla hesitated for just a moment, her breath steadying as she made the call. Fire. The pulse cannons erupted from the Celestine, their blast streaking through space with deadly precision. The lead ship of the enemy fleet shuddered under the onslaught, its engines flickering as the targeted systems failed. It veered off course, its trajectory unbalanced as the crew fought to regain control. The rest of the fleet momentarily faltered, thrown off by the unexpected turn of events. Now, Kayla commanded, her voice steely. Take out their communications relay. We need to cut them off from coordinating. The next barrage of fire struck the enemy ship's communications array, sending sparks flying as the systems went dark. The remaining ships of the fleet began to spread out, confusion settling in among their ranks. The advantage was hers now. We've got them on the back foot, Kayla said, her lips curling into a grim smile. Let's finish this. With a final series of calculated strikes, the Celestine disabled the remaining ships, forcing them into retreat. The last of the enemy fleet turned tail and fled, their damaged vessels limping back into the depths of space. The immediate threat was gone, but Kayla knew that wasn't the end of it. They had been sent to stop her. She could feel it in the very fabric of the mission, and they would return. "We've won the battle, but not the war," Kayla muttered, her mind racing. "Keep an eye on the readings. They'll be back, and when they do, they'll bring everything they have." Chapter 4: The Unveiling. After the battle, the Celestine hovered in space, its hull battered but still holding strong. The enemy fleet was gone, for now, but Kayla could feel the weight of the silence around her. The battle had been intense, but it was just the beginning of something far more significant. She had come to this planet seeking answers, but what she had uncovered in the heart of the ancient city had far exceeded her expectations and her worst fears. "Captain," Myra's voice broke through Kayla's thoughts. "We've analyzed the data from the energy spike earlier. It's not just an energy signature, there's a massive power source deep beneath the city. It's been dormant for centuries, but it's activating again. We think it's the heart of the exile technology." Kayla stood up from her seat, her thoughts turning to the transmission she had intercepted earlier. The warning from the mysterious being the one who had spoken to her on the surface flashed through her mind. "You are not the only one seeking the exile secrets." The truth was clearer now, but it was also more dangerous than she had ever imagined. "We need to find it," Kayla said firmly, her voice cold with determination. "We need to get to the heart of the city before anyone else does. If there's a power source that's strong, there's no telling what it could do in the wrong hands." Mira nodded, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of doubt. "Captain, this is no ordinary power source. The readings suggest it could be a weapon, something capable of reshaping entire star systems. If the exiles left this behind, they did so for a reason." "I know," Kayla replied, her mind focused, her hands steady. "But we can't let it fall into the wrong hands. We have to protect it, no matter the cost." As the Celestine began its descent back toward the planet, Kayla couldn't help but wonder what was waiting for them in the heart of the ancient city. What secrets would they uncover? And, more importantly, who else would come to claim the power that lay beneath the surface? The answers were waiting, but they were buried beneath centuries of silence, hidden away by those who had come before them. Kayla had already fought to protect this mystery, but now, she had to ensure that the galaxy would never fall under the shadow of the exile's legacy. The Celestine descended into the atmosphere once again, the city now looming ahead, dark and silent. The ancient power that lay beneath it was awakening, and with it, the unknown future of the galaxy. Kayla Harks was ready to face whatever came next. The cold silence of space lingered as Kayla and her crew surveyed the remnants of the enemy fleet that had just been forced into retreat. The Celestine lingered in the quiet aftermath of the battle, her systems humming softly as they came to life again. Kayla's heart pounded in her chest, the adrenaline still flowing as the last of the enemy ships disappeared into the darkness of space. Their shields were damaged, but the Celestine had held its ground. She felt a fleeting sense of victory, but it was short-lived. The real challenge was still ahead, buried beneath the surface of the planet. "Status report?" Kayla asked, her voice cutting through the tension on the bridge. "All systems are stable, Captain," Mira replied, her eyes scanning the various monitors. "Damage is minimal. We've got a few hull breaches, but nothing too serious. We've got the ship patched up for now, but we'll need to take care of the full repairs later." Kayla nodded, her gaze drifting to the planet below. The ancient city that had been hidden for millennia still loomed in the distance, its eerie silhouette remaining silent and impenetrable. The figure she had encountered on the surface, the warnings about the exile's legacy, and the cryptic transmissions all seemed to be connected in ways she couldn't fully comprehend. It was as though the planet itself had some knowledge of her, of the ship, of the crew, perhaps even of the galaxy beyond. "Give me the coordinates for the city's core," Kayla ordered. "We're not going to wait for them to regroup. The longer we sit here, the more time they have to prepare." Mira was already a step ahead. "Coordinates set, Captain. The anomaly's epicenter is directly beneath the city. We can't access it from orbit, we'll have to go in on foot." "I know," Kayla said, her voice firm. "Prepare the team. We're going down. We'll make contact with whatever's down there, and we'll get answers. No more waiting." As the Celestine began its descent, Kayla's thoughts swirled. The warning in the transmission they had received earlier haunted her thoughts. You are not the only ones seeking the exile's secrets. Whoever these mysterious enemies were, they weren't just after the city, they were after the heart of the exile legacy. The power source beneath the city, the one Mira had described as capable of reshaping entire star systems, it could change everything. If it fell into the wrong hands, it could tip the balance of the galaxy into chaos. As the team gathered in the landing bay, Kayla could see the determination in their eyes. They knew what was at stake. They weren't just soldiers. They were explorers, too. But Kayla could sense the unease among them. No one had expected the situation to escalate so quickly. They had been sent to investigate, to uncover a mystery buried in the galaxy's forgotten corners. But now, the very future of the galaxy seemed to rest on their shoulders. The shuttle descended toward the city's outskirts, its thrusters pushing against the planet's atmosphere as the ancient ruins came into view. The towering spires, their surfaces glowing faintly, rose like monuments to a forgotten civilization, their skeletal frames seemingly untouched by time. Kayla could almost feel the weight of the city, the secrets buried within its depths, waiting for them to unlock it. Stay sharp, Kayla commanded as they disembarked onto the planet's surface, the heavy gravity pulling at their movements. The air was thick with a strange, almost metallic scent, the atmosphere carrying a faint hum as if the planet itself was alive. We don't know what we'll find down there, but one thing's for sure, we're not alone. Chapter 4, The Unveiling. The team moved cautiously through the ruins, their boots crunching against the cracked stone that had once been a thriving city. The air was thick with the echoes of an ancient past, and the further they went, the more oppressive the silence became. The buildings, though towering and magnificent in their prime, now stood as hollow shells of what they once were. Some had crumbled entirely, their once beautiful arches now reduced to rubble. Others still held their form, strange geometric patterns etched into the walls that Kayla could not decipher. Their footsteps echoed loudly as they made their way toward the heart of the city, where the anomaly had been pinpointed. As they walked deeper into the city, the air grew colder, and the ground beneath their feet began to hum faintly. It was as if they were approaching something alive, something that could feel them drawing closer. Dr. Valen, the lead archaeologist, spoke up. This city, it's not just ancient. It's preserved. The exiles must have developed a way to freeze time, to protect their secrets. Everything here feels untouched, as though it was meant to remain this way forever. Kayla nodded, her hand resting on her weapon as they continued forward. That's exactly what's worrying me. Whoever hid this city did so for a reason. And now, it seems like it's waking up. As they reached the base of a massive pyramid-like structure, the ground beneath them vibrated once more, this time more pronounced. The team stopped, their weapons drawn, their senses heightened. The humming sound grew louder, and Kayla could feel it vibrating in her bones. Something was stirring within the heart of the city, something ancient and powerful. She wasn't sure if it was a warning or an invitation. Captain, Myra's voice crackled through the comms. We're detecting an energy surge coming from below the pyramid. It's coming from a central chamber, but the readings are chaotic. Something's activating down there. Without hesitation, Kayla motioned for her team to proceed. We move now. Stay close, and don't make any sudden moves. Whatever's down there, we'll deal with it together. They descended into the darkened depths beneath the pyramid, their footsteps echoing off the walls as the chamber grew more and more oppressive. The air grew thicker, and the light from their torches flickered in the darkness. The hum was louder now, the sound reverberating off the stone, filling the space with a sense of impending doom. At the heart of the chamber, they found it, a massive machine, its core glowing with a sickly green light. The machine's surface was covered in intricate carvings, symbols that seemed to pulse with life. It was unlike anything Kayla had ever seen, a fusion of technology and organic growth that defied all logic. This is it, Dr. Valen whispered, his eyes wide with awe. This is the power source, the heart of the exile civilization. It's alive. I can feel it. It's reacting to us. Kayla stepped forward, her eyes scanning the machine's surface, the air growing colder as she approached. It was as if the machine itself was drawing in their presence, feeding off their energy. What does it do? Kayla asked, her voice steady despite the growing unease in her gut. Dr. Valen hesitated, his face pale as he studied the machine. It's a conduit, Captain. A bridge between dimensions. The exiles must have used it to manipulate energy on a scale we can't even comprehend. They were trying to unlock something more, a power that could reshape the very fabric of reality. Kayla's heart skipped a beat as she realized the full extent of what they had uncovered. This was no mere weapon, it was a key to something far greater, something that could tear apart the very foundations of the universe. The exiles had not just hidden their city, they had hidden the ultimate power, and now, Kayla had uncovered it. Suddenly, the machine began to hum louder, its green glow intensifying as the chamber around them seemed to pulse with life. Kayla instinctively stepped back, her mind racing. The energy from the machine was growing, and it was becoming dangerously unstable. "We need to shut it down," Kayla ordered, her voice cutting through the tension. "Now." But before they could react, a voice boomed through the chamber. A voice like the one Kayla had heard before, when she was face to face with the figure on the surface. "You should not have come here, human." The figure, now fully manifested, appeared before them, towering and spectral, its form shifting between light and shadow. It moved with purpose, its eyes glowing with an ancient, otherworldly power. The team froze, weapons raised, but Kayla stepped forward, her mind sharp, her resolve unshaken. "We have no choice," Kayla replied, her voice calm but firm. "We've uncovered your legacy. Now we need to understand it." The figure's eyes glowed brighter as it spoke, its voice carrying the weight of eons. "The exile's power was never meant to be wielded by your kind. You are but a fleeting moment in the universe's vastness. This power will either shape you into something greater or destroy you." Kayla held her ground, her heart pounding in her chest. She had no idea what this being meant by its words, but one thing was clear: they were on the precipice of something that could alter the course of history. With a final, piercing gaze, the figure faded into the air, its presence dissolving into the shadows. The machine's hum began to subside, the glow of its core dimming as the energy stabilized. But Kayla knew this wasn't over. The figure's warning had been clear: their actions would have consequences, and the choices they made in the coming hours would determine the fate of the galaxy. The exile's secrets were no longer just a mystery. They were a weapon, a force beyond their comprehension, and now it was up to Kayla and her crew to decide how to use it or whether to destroy it before it could fall into the wrong hands. Kayla turned to her crew, her voice resolute. "Prepare to leave the planet. We've uncovered the truth, but now we need to ensure it stays hidden. The galaxy is not ready for what we've found." As the Celestine ascended from the surface, Kayla's thoughts raced. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the exile's legacy had been awakened, and whatever happened next, it would change everything. The stars beyond the viewport seemed endless, but Kayla knew that the true challenge had just begun. She was not just a captain anymore. She was the guardian of a power that could reshape the galaxy, and she would fight to protect it, no matter what it cost. As the Celestine slowly pulled away from the planet, Kayla couldn't help but glance back at the fading silhouette of the ancient city. The ominous figure, the hum of the machine, the weight of the warning, it was all still with her, lingering like a shadow that refused to dissipate. The figure had called her a harbinger of change, but Kayla wasn't sure if that meant the galaxy would be reborn or torn apart. The exile's legacy, once dormant, had now been activated, and she was caught in the middle of it all. "Captain," Myra's voice broke through the haze of Kayla's thoughts, her tone filled with urgency. "The readings are changing again. The energy we detected earlier, it's not dissipating. In fact, it's amplifying. It's like something is feeding off the energy we released when we interacted with the machine." Kayla's breath caught in her throat. "Feeding off the energy? What do you mean by amplifying?" Kayla asked, her voice firm despite the rising panic in her chest. "We're picking up another fleet," Mira replied, her hands shaking as she adjusted the ship's sensors. "And this one's bigger, much bigger. They're coming from the far edge of the system, and their energy signatures are dash." Mira paused as the data flashed on her screen. "They're identical to the one we encountered before, the ones who attacked us earlier. But now, they've been reinforced. Whatever's down there, Captain, it's not just activating. It's calling them." Kayla's heart sank as the reality of the situation hit her. The figure had warned them that others were coming. The power beneath the planet, the exile's legacy, had been the bait. And now, the galaxy's ancient guardians, or whoever they were, had sensed it and were mobilizing to claim what Kayla had just uncovered. Whatever had been awakened was far beyond anything Kayla had anticipated. She wasn't just protecting a city anymore. She was protecting a force that could shape or destroy entire star systems. How long until they reach us? Kayla asked, her mind already working through the possible scenarios. At this rate, they'll be here in less than 30 minutes, Mira replied, her voice edged with fear. Kayla stood, her resolve hardening. The decision was clear, even if the cost would be high. Get us to maximum speed. We're not sticking around to see what happens when they arrive. We need to find a way to neutralize this power, or at least ensure they can't access it. We can't let it fall into their hands. But as the ship surged forward into the unknown, Kayla couldn't shake the feeling that it might already be too late. The exiles' power was already on the move, and even if they could reach it before the enemy did, there was no telling what would happen once they engaged. Kayla knew one thing for certain: this was a battle for the very fabric of the galaxy itself. The Celestine cut through the stars, the emergency lights dimming as the crew braced themselves for the oncoming storm. The plan was simple: find the power source, neutralize it, and escape before the incoming fleet could reach them. But the plan was also fragile. One wrong move, one missed calculation, and everything they had fought for, everything they had uncovered, could fall into the wrong hands. We need a tactical solution, Kayla said, her voice cold and calculating as she paced in front of the crew. We need to find a way to collapse the exiles' core systems, shut down the power without triggering a catastrophic reaction. Dr. Valen, is there anything in your research that could help us? Dr. Valen looked up, his face pale and drawn, his eyes wide with the weight of the situation. There is one possibility, he said slowly, his voice betraying his uncertainty. But it's risky. The power source seems to be based on a hybrid technology, biological and mechanical. The exiles might have built a failsafe, something to prevent outsiders from tampering with it. If we disrupt the connection, we could trigger an overload. That would destroy everything including us. Kayla clenched her fists at her sides, her eyes narrowing. She had never backed down from a fight, and she wouldn't start now. Then we make sure we're not near it when the overload happens. We disable it from a safe distance. But how do we even begin to break the connection? Dr. Valen asked, his eyes filled with a mix of awe and fear. Kayla turned back to Mira, her voice firm. Mira, how close are we to the core now? How much time do we have? We're close, Mira replied, her face tense as she reviewed the data. The fleet is approaching fast, but we're still ahead of them. We should be able to reach the core in time, but if we delay any longer, we'll be cornered. The plan was clear. They had to neutralize the power source before the enemy reached them, and they had to do it quickly. The ship's engines roared to life as they closed the distance to the planet's core, Kayla's mind running through every possible contingency. Every second felt like a lifetime. As they descended deeper into the planet's atmosphere, the once hidden energy readings became stronger and stronger, the pulsing light from the exile's core radiating from below. Kayla's heart raced as they closed in on the city's heart, the place where the power source lay. Captain, Mira said, her voice tight with urgency. They've made it to the orbit. We're running out of time. Set the course for the core, Kayla commanded. Prepare for maximum power, and get everyone ready to move out once we land. We'll deal with the rest when we get there. The landing was rougher than Kayla had anticipated, but the Celestine held steady as they touched down near the heart of the city's core. The ground trembled beneath them, and Kayla's instincts screamed at her to move quickly. She didn't wait for orders, she was already up and moving before the rest of the team had even finished securing their gear. As they made their way to the center of the power source, Kayla could feel the air grow thicker, the energy of the exile's legacy crackling around them like an electric storm. They had reached it, the heart of the machine. It pulsed in front of them, glowing with a sickly green light, its power thrumming through the walls. Is this it? Dr. Valen asked, his voice filled with awe and terror. Kayla nodded, her jaw set. This is it. Now, let's make sure it stays dormant. But before they could act, a voice boomed through the chamber, a voice she knew all too well. The figure from before, the one who had warned her, now appeared before them, flickering in and out of existence, its presence nearly overwhelming. You dare to tamper with what is beyond your comprehension? The figure intoned. You cannot control what you do not understand, human. Kayla stepped forward, unflinching. I'm not here to control it. I'm here to stop it from falling into the wrong hands. The figure's eyes glowed brighter. And you think you can? You cannot escape the legacy of the exiles. It is already too late. The power you have awakened will reshape this galaxy, whether you are ready or not. Kayla's heart pounded as she took another step toward the machine. Then we'll face it together. But I won't let it fall into the hands of those who would use it for destruction. The figure didn't respond. It simply stood there, watching as Kayla and her crew prepared to do what was necessary. The fate of the galaxy rested on this moment. She knew the stakes. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a battle for control over an ancient power that could change everything. With a final, resolute breath, Kayla gave the order. Initiate the shutdown sequence. The core of the exile machine shuddered, its pulsing energy starting to slow as the power systems began to collapse. But as the energy died down, the ground beneath them trembled with a force that shook the very air. A new, terrifying presence made itself known, a force far more powerful than they had anticipated. But Kayla had made her choice. The future of the galaxy was in her hands now, and she would do whatever it took to protect it. As the final explosion erupted from the heart of the exile's power, Kayla and her team braced themselves for the inevitable. The battle for control over the exile's legacy had only just begun, and Kayla Harks would be at the center of it, fighting to protect the galaxy from a power that none of them could fully understand. The story of the exiles was far from over. It had only just begun.